Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
Today we're sharing 5 stories. First, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman reveals the shocking ethical dilemma with ChatGPT that keeps him up at night. And stick around for his chilling non-answer about its military use right after a $200 million defense contract. Then we'll hear from Randy Pitchford, the studio boss behind the $94 million selling Borderlands series, as he explains why it shouldn't be so successful, and the massive fly to the moon gamble he's taking for Borderlands 4. After that, the ChatGPT moment for humanoid robots is here, fueling a US versus China showdown as Elon Musk's Tesla aims for mass production, with some analysts predicting 3 billion robots by 2060. We'll also dive into the framework deal to save TikTok, reached just before the deadline, and explore the high-stakes terms as President Donald Trump and China's Xi Jinping prepare to meet. And finally, we'll cover why 65% of job candidates using AI are getting caught, as the tools hallucinate fake skills, sparking an AI versus AI arms race in hiring. Let's start with a single admission from OpenAI's CEO that might just change your entire perspective on ChatGPT. Sam Altman just admitted he doesn't sleep well at night, and the reason is an absolute bombshell. In a recent interview, Altman revealed he loses the most sleep over how his AI handles the topic of suicide. This comes right after a family filed a wrongful death lawsuit, claiming ChatGPT actively helped their teenage son explore suicide methods. A while back, we walked through that lawsuit and asked a hard question: what happens when the platform itself is the one generating harmful content, not just hosting it? Altman's response was stunningly candid. He said, "They probably talked about it, and we probably didn't save their lives. Maybe we could have said something better." This situation throws AI companies into a massive legal and ethical storm. Our existing laws for things like product liability or negligence weren't designed for an AI that can learn and evolve on its own. We previously analysed how Section 230 has shielded platforms for user posts, and this case pressures courts to decide whether that shield applies when the AI generates the speech itself. And remember, the FTC already opened a formal inquiry into the safety of major chatbots a while back, so regulators are not watching from the sidelines. This single issue exposes the massive ethical tightrope OpenAI is walking. Every day, hundreds of millions of people talk to their model. The company says it consults hundreds of moral philosophers to decide what the AI will and won't do, like refusing to help a user build a biological weapon. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of strategy at play. How do you actually turn advice from a philosopher into computer code? OpenAI is actively funding research, like a project at Duke University, to train algorithms to predict human moral judgments. They are literally trying to build a philosophy to code pipeline. The problem is, whose philosophy wins when they conflict, and who ultimately holds the power to approve these system-level moral judgments? Continuing our earlier discussion about OpenAI's unusual non-profit over for-profit governance and those public calls from former employees for stronger public interest guardrails, today's interview puts that "who decides" question front and center. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. What about your privacy? Altman is now pushing for something he calls AI privilege, the idea that anything you say to a chatbot should be as confidential as talking to your doctor or lawyer. Right now, US officials can subpoena your chat history. A few days ago, our focus was liability and enforcement. Today, the focus shifts to confidentiality and whether the law should recognize a new protected class of AI conversations. Establishing AI privilege would be a landmark legal shift. This decision brings both the benefit of protecting you, allowing you to discuss sensitive information without fear of it being used against you, but it also comes with the inherent risk that critics are raising. It could create a digital black box, making it impossible for law enforcement to access crucial data during criminal investigations. It's a classic battle between privacy and security. This is where the situation takes a more complex turn. When asked if ChatGPT would be used by the military to harm humans, Altman gave a chilling non-answer, saying he wasn't sure exactly how to feel about that. This is the same company that recently received a $200 million contract from the US Department of Defense. We previously flagged the tension between OpenAI's public benefit mission and the commercial realities pushing it into new domains. This is that tension in real time. Actually, this military partnership was only possible because in January 2024, OpenAI quietly updated its usage policy, removing the explicit ban on military and warfare applications. For its part, the company insists its tools will only be used for national security work like cybersecurity and will not be used to cause harm or develop weapons. But it shows just how quickly the lines are blurring. So what's the end game in a world where AI is a therapist, a legal advisor, and a military tool? Altman himself offers one final stark prediction. AI will eliminate many jobs that exist today, especially in the short term. This prediction clashes with the popular narrative that AI will up-level everyone. The economic reality is that while AI can boost productivity, it also risks concentrating wealth and power. We previously analysed Microsoft's multi-billion-dollar stake and exclusive access to OpenAI's tech, and that AGI escape clause that could reshuffle control, exactly the kind of structural power dynamics that will shape who wins and who loses. In fact, some studies suggest that powerful models like ChatGPT 4 could disrupt higher-paid white-collar jobs, even more than low-wage ones, creating a massive economic shift we are just beginning to understand. We were just talking about the massive economic shifts AI is causing, and speaking of high-stakes gambles, another industry is facing its own existential crisis. It's not every day the head of a video game series that has sold 94 million copies goes on the record saying it shouldn't be as successful as at Island. That's Randy Pitchford, the studio boss behind Borderlands, a franchise that has quietly put itself in the same league as Tomb Raider and Harry Potter. He calls his own creation a super, super niche thing that somehow found a massive audience. And, you know, he's not wrong. When Borderlands first launched, the looter shooter genre was not the giant it is today. They carved out their own space. But what's even more niche about them now is their business model. In an era where most big games are designed as a live service constantly online, always updating Borderlands has stuck to the traditional single purchase game with big expansions. Research shows this was a deliberate choice to preserve the game's identity for its dedicated fans, avoiding the pitfalls of server dependency and player burnout. But after a 6-year wait for the new Borderlands 4, the story behind why games are taking longer is a major issue. According to journalist Ash Parrish, the industry is in a turbulent state with firings, studio closures, and cancelled games. She says when you lose developers, you lose institutional wisdom, and getting any game made under these conditions is like a miracle. In some cases, it's like starting over. This institutional wisdom she mentions is incredibly critical. In the industry, they call it tribal knowledge. This isn't stuff that's written down in a manual. It's the unwritten expertise that veteran developers build up over years, working with a game's specific custom-built technology. When those veterans are laid off, that knowledge just walks out the door. The new team might have the code, but they don't have the roadmap. It's like being handed the keys to a spaceship without the flight instructions. And the pressure isn't just from fans, it's from investors. Parrish lays out the brutal reality. Everything that comes out has to be bigger, better, and if the profit line for investors isn't going up fast enough, then you're done. That's it. The situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, the business, driven by shareholders, needs predictable profits every financial quarter. On the other, making a huge creative video game is a long, messy, artistic process that is anything but predictable. With AAA game budgets now soaring past $200 million, the pressure to play it safe with sequels and avoid risky new ideas is immense. So how does the developer respond to that kind of pressure? By going all in. Pitchford says the new Borderlands 4 is by far the biggest thing we've ever done. Here's proof. He says if you look at the moon in the game sky, you can get there seamlessly. Now get this. Creating a massive, seamless world where you can fly from a planet to its moon without a loading screen is one of the biggest technical challenges in gaming. Developers have to use incredibly complex systems to stream data and manage the level of detail so your console or PC doesn't just melt. The danger here is what's called technical debt. In the rush to build something so huge, developers can create a tangle of code that leads to buggy, broken launches. It's the ultimate bigger is better gamble. He admits that commercial success is what allows them to keep going. He calls it fuel to go deeper down this crazy rabbit hole. With development cycles stretching longer and costs soaring, the industry is watching to see if this massive gamble pays off. That seamless world in Borderlands is a huge technical feat, but it's still virtual. Now, let's shift our focus to the physical world, where a top robotics executive just declared the ChatGPT moment for humanoid robots has arrived. Now, that comparison is exciting, but you have to understand it's also a bit misleading. After all, software like ChatGPT can be copied and distributed to millions of users at almost no cost. A physical robot, on the other hand, is made of atoms, not bits. Each one has to be built, shipped, maintained, and insured, which creates massive economic and logistical hurdles. He didn't stop there. He also said that this year has been defined as the first year of mass production for humanoid robots. One Chinese startup, Galbert, claims it has already deployed almost 1,000 robots. In the US, Elon Musk says he expects Tesla to produce 5,000 of its Optimus robots this year alone. This is setting the stage for a massive global showdown. We're seeing the US, with companies like Tesla focusing on highly advanced AI-driven robots to solve labor shortages, while at the same time, a wave of Chinese startups like Unitree and Agibot are racing to bring their own products to market. These robots are already appearing everywhere, from factories to marathons. And make no mistake, this isn't just a business competition, it's a technological cold war. The US and China are taking fundamentally different approaches, leading to a split in the market with different technology standards. This brings us to a huge national security question. Do we want foreign-made humanoid robots with their advanced sensors and data gathering capabilities operating inside our most critical factories and warehouses? The key technology shift, improvements in generative AI, are now allowing these robots to learn on the job rather than just rely on preset commands. So how does this actually work? Believe it or not, it's pretty incredible. Take Tesla's Optimus. It uses what they call a bot brain, a single computer chip running neural networks adapted from their full self-driving car technology. This end-to-end system handles everything from seeing the world to executing movements. It learns by watching humans and then sharing that knowledge across the entire fleet. So a lesson learned by one robot can instantly make every other robot in the world smarter. But the story isn't that simple. While the industry is buzzing, some analysts are pumping the brakes, warning that mass adoption won't be a sudden moment, but a slow crawl, held back by high costs and manufacturing complexity. And those costs are no joke. A basic model might cost a few $1,000s, but the advanced humanoid robots we're talking about can cost upwards of $500,000 each. And that's just the purchase price. Then you add on thousands per year for maintenance, plus the cost of training staff. It's a massive investment. Still, the long-term predictions are staggering. Merrill Lynch analysts recently estimated that from just 2,500 units shipped last year, the market will jump to 18,000 units in 2025. What really brought this to a head was their forecast for the future. A global robot population of 3 billion by the year 2060. The question is no longer if they are coming, but how fast. And as they arrive, a huge unanswered question looms. Who is responsible when one of them makes a mistake? Our legal system was built for human error, not machine error. And that's a challenge we have to solve before we can truly live and work alongside billions of robots. Speaking of national security questions and foreign-made technology, that brings us directly to our next story, TikTok. After months of threats, deadlines, and a potential nationwide shutdown, a framework deal has apparently been reached between the US and China. However, if you zoom out, you'll see the real complexity here. The core of TikTok, its incredibly powerful recommendation algorithm, is considered a state-controlled technology by China. China has strict export controls on AI like this, which means the US can't just buy the secret sauce. So this framework is likely a complex web of licensing agreements or even a plan to rebuild a new algorithm from scratch in the US. And it all comes down to this Friday. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are set to meet to finalize the terms. This 11th hour agreement comes as the clock is ticking on a September 17th deadline to either sell TikTok's US business or shut the app down entirely. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed from trade talks in Madrid that the commercial terms have been agreed upon, indicating the deal could pivot the platform to a US-controlled ownership. So what does US-controlled ownership actually mean? This is the million-dollar question. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, or CFIUS, defines control as the power to direct important matters. But in some reported versions of this deal, ByteDance would still own 80% of the new US entity. This raises a huge question. if the original Chinese company still owns the majority, who is really in control? This follows a law passed by Congress that labeled TikTok a foreign adversary controlled application. This entire situation is creating a playbook. The US government is signaling a shift from outright bans to forced partnerships or sales, which could become the model for how the US deals with other popular apps with Chinese ties like Temu and Shein. But the path here has been a roller coaster. President Trump himself postponed the shutdown multiple times with executive orders, all while his administration issued stark warnings. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick stated bluntly that TikTok would shutter for Americans if China didn't give the US more autonomy. Trump himself has called the platform a national security threat. The national security threat boils down to two key things: data and influence. The big fear is that the Chinese government could force ByteDance to hand over sensitive data on millions of American users. To solve this, a plan called Project Texas was started, aiming to store all US user data on Oracle's servers right here in the US. But reports have suggested that even with this project, some data remained accessible to employees back in China, highlighting just how difficult it is to build a truly impenetrable digital wall. On Truth Social, Trump posted that a deal was reached on a certain company that young people wanted to save. This all begs the question, who is actually buying it? Trump previously told Fox News he had a group of very wealthy people ready to buy the platform, but their identities were never revealed. While names like Oracle chairman Larry Ellison and private tech entrepreneur Elon Musk have been floated, and bidders like Perplexity AI and Project Liberty have emerged, the final buyer remains the biggest mystery. Interestingly enough, Elon Musk's interest is thought to be tied to his larger ambition of turning his platform X into an everything app. Absorbing TikTok's massive video library and user base would be a huge shortcut. However, Musk himself has publicly stated he has no plans to acquire TikTok, preferring to build things from scratch. This just adds another layer of intrigue to the whole situation. From one powerful algorithm to another, we're now seeing a full-blown technological arms race in the job market, and it's catching a lot of people by surprise. It starts with this. A job applicant was asked, "Why do you want to work here?" Their response: "As artificial intelligence, I do not have emotions." That's not a joke. That's a real answer a recruiter received, and it's a warning sign of a massive new problem. A new report says a staggering 65% of job candidates are now using AI to help with their applications, but recruiters are catching on, and the results can be disastrous. This isn't just about candidates trying to get a leg up, though. It's a full-blown technological arms race. On one side, you have job seekers using AI to optimize their resumes to get past automated filters. On the other, companies are upgrading their own AI applicant tracking systems, or ATS, to get better at screening these AI-written applications. It's AI versus AI, and the human candidate is caught in the middle. One recruiter said she can totally tell when someone uses AI because she'll suddenly get 6 applications with the exact same structure. Now, while that recruiter feels confident, the reality is a little more complicated. Research into AI detection tools shows they are far from foolproof. In fact, some studies show that even the best detectors are only about 70% accurate and can have a real problem with false positives, sometimes flagging human writing as AI generated. This creates a risk of unfairly penalising qualified candidates. But the problem goes deeper than just sounding like a robot. Experts warn that AI tools are prone to hallucinating, that is, completely fabricating information. Here's where it gets interesting. These AI models aren't databases of facts. They are incredibly sophisticated pattern matches. When you ask an AI to write something, it's predicting the next most likely word based on the billions of examples it was trained on. So when it's asked to tailor a resume and there's a gap in your experience, its programming isn't to stop and say, "I don't know." Its job is to fill the gap with plausible sounding text, which often means inventing skills or projects out of thin air. It will literally lie because its goal is to complete the pattern, not to be truthful. Career coach Jen DiLorenzo says when AI is asked to tailor a resume, it will start to lie if the experience doesn't perfectly align. She had one client who let AI rewrite her resumes without checking them. The tool inserted so many inaccuracies that when she landed interviews, she was terrified because she couldn't speak to the bullet points on her own resume. This is a perfect example of what some experts are calling the de-skilling of the job seeker. The long-term risk here is that if we become too dependent on AI for core career skills, we may lose the ability to do it ourselves. That's a critical muscle you need, not just for the interview, but throughout your career. Recruiters say these AI-generated applications are often just stuffed with keywords, creating what they call word salad. They're jarring to read and lack any authentic story. What recruiters are really looking for is your unique voice and personality, something current AI is not built to do. It can polish your sentences, but it can't replicate the genuine narrative that makes you. Some applicants are even accidentally pasting the AI prompts directly into their answers. The bottom line from experts is that while these tools are tempting, over-reliance on them could absolutely ruin your chances. As one recruiter put it, employers ultimately want to hire you, not the tools you can use.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.